I think that we are just about ready to get started. Our speaker has posted a link in the chat box, so please feel free to take a look at that. I'm Sherry Jordan. I'm the CEO of the Edmond Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Mental health is definitely a high priority during this pandemic. I have a couple of statistics for you. The Tulsa-based Healthy Minds Policy Initiative estimates that more than 13,000 Oklahomans will develop substance use disorders during this. That roughly 92,000 more Oklahomans may experience suicidal thoughts during this crisis, and 18,400 may attempt suicide. They're also estimating that childhood mental health needs will increase substantially, and as many as 30% of children involved in quarantines may experience post-traumatic stress disorder. With all of that going on, and with trying to continue to provide value to our members, we have asked Josh Nichols to speak to us today. So Josh is a licensed marital and family therapist and a certified sex addiction therapist. He is the co-owner of the group practice known as Family Solutions Counseling. He is also a co-owner of an eating disorder intensive outpatient program new to the Oklahoma City metro area called Nourished. Josh and his partners have a primary focus on helping individuals and couples survive, heal, and thrive from the impact of betrayal trauma, such as infidelity and sex addiction. However, as of late, it seems the majority of therapy is spent helping people manage their lives and feelings in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Josh is a former board member of the Oklahoma Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. He was also presented with the 2015 Rising Star Award by the Oklahoma State University College of Human Sciences. He is married to his wife, Amanda, who's a college professor, and they have 3 kids and live in Edmond. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Nichols.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm going to have to get this on different view here for me. Okay, here we go. All right, so thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate the Edmond Chamber for having me, and for all of you who signed up to listen to me talk for an hour, which I hope to not be chatting for an entire hour, but so I hope that maybe we get some questions toward the end here. So what I ask you guys to do is let's utilize the chat box today in this presentation, because part of my goal here, I was trying to think of how can we do this in a way that is the most beneficial to all of us. And so I'm really glad Sherry brought in some statistics, because I purposely decided I wasn't going to dive in too heavily to the research of all this, and because I wanted to utilize the time to talk about more practical things and to get to the heart of what's really going on for all of us right now, everybody, as we're experiencing something that if you were alive during the Spanish flu, then you were a baby. So, most people weren't alive. So, so it's something that we haven't, no one basically has experienced to this. And so we're all trying to figure this out. And so we're all going through something mentally and emotionally, spiritually maybe, and probably even to some degree relationally with all the social distancing. So as I start talking about things, as certain things resonate with you, feel free to throw that into the chat box. I'm not sure if at the end, Brittany or Sherry, if you can, if we'll have access to the material that will be put in the chat box. But if we are able to distribute that in some way, that would really be great. Because as something resonates with you and you throw that out there, you might, one, be helping somebody else, but two, you might be thinking it's easy to really think in the midst of something like this that you're the only one going through something, and sometimes you realize that, oh, there's other people that happens to as well. So do anybody have any experiences like that, like just kind of weird experiences where it's like you realize like someone else does the weird habit that you do, and they're like, oh, I thought I was the only person that ever did something like that, like, put ketchup on your fish or something like that, which I don't do, by the way. My son does that, but I'm sure there's someone else out there who puts ketchup on their fish. And now if you're in this meeting, you know that my son also does that, and now you don't have to feel alone. So if you have any weird quirks like that, feel free to throw those up there. Like, yeah, that I realized that the other day that someone else does something I do. But we are well. Before I dive into the material that I have, I do just briefly want to tell you guys, and I'm gonna mention some things about what we're doing at Family Solutions at the end of this. I'm saving the resources part for the very end. But we've put together several things at Family Solutions to help with the COVID-19 pandemic. I say several. It feels like several because it's a lot of man hours putting it together. But yeah, kind of as was mentioned, we're a group practice that typically focuses on betrayal trauma in the form of like working with couples with infidelity and sex addiction types of treatment. And we also have a number of other practitioners that do a number of different things, but it does seem like, all the sessions, and we are 100% online right now, that they're heavily focused on checking in with people and how you're doing from week to week, because of the emotional and relational toll this pandemic is having on us. And just if you really think about it, it kind of feels like a forever, I think, but it's just been a few weeks, and the impact that it's had in just a few weeks since the guidelines came down for the social distancing has just been tremendous. And so I think, most people concur that we're living in some really strange times, some wild times, that's very surreal. And I wanted to throw out just some weird things that I've noticed just in my own experience of going through this social distancing thing. And something you can talk about in the chat boxes, as I'm going through these, if you start thinking of, there's some odd things that you've noticed about yourself or other people through this experience, that feel free to post those in the chat box. But the first, I think obviously one thing that we've noticed, and it's that everybody is noticing, is like the increase of anxiety or depression and things like that. And I don't think that's a surprise to most people. But there are some very strange things I've noticed, that everything's a threat. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. This came to me the other day when I was making some food, and I'm currently at my office in the village, but there's just a few of us that come here, and we stay pretty secluded in our offices. But when we do have to get out from time to time, like to go get our food out of the fridge. And I noticed that the moment I come to the office, my anxiety goes up because I know other people have been here. And then when I leave my little hub that I'm in, and I go into the kitchen, to make food, my anxiety goes up. And then the other day I was reaching for a plastic fork to use with my food, and I noticed how nervous I started to feel, and how I was pinching the fork at the prong, and then when I got it down, I cleaned it with hand sanitizer. I feel like my food has been flavored with Lysol and hand sanitizer for the last few weeks, which I'm sure is going to create some other kind of medical health issue down the road. So, it's just, and then it dawned on me how much everything's a threat. Everything you reach for. I don't know if it's like that. If it's like that for you guys, say yes or something in the chat box. But everything I reach for, I'm thinking about what I'm about to touch, and if I want to touch it, and how I'm going to touch it. Am I gonna? And I'm like, am I gonna put my sleeve over my hand to open a doorknob, but then what if it's on my sleeve? It's just all these questions, these feelings of threat that have entered into our lives, or in my personal life, just thinking about everything that I touch and the desire to wash my hands. Um, and that also happens like when I come home and I enter into my house and my kids will run up and hug me, even though as soon as I leave my office, I get into my pickup and I have hand sanitizer and Lysol wipes in there. And so I sanitize my hands and Lysol down my steering wheel and things like that. And then when I get home, even though I haven't touched anything else since I left the office, when I get home, my kids run up and want to hug me, and I tense, because I'm like, I just came from the outside, it's uh, like it's in the air and it's all over me type thing, and it's just this constant threat that we're under, and how it's, and I've just been noticing how it's really been affecting my presence and with everything, and trying to protect myself and the people around me. Even every now and then, you ever have those moments where you forget to breathe and you're like, you know, um, and every time I have one of those deep breaths, like there's a little bit of nervousness that happens, because like, what if I just inhaled COVID? So you guys are probably chalking me up to having an anxiety disorder, that I probably need to talk to Dr. Morris about getting some medicine for. So, but I think this is I think all of our anxiety is up, and we're all under this constant threat of contracting something that we wouldn't even know for days if we had it. And it's just a very weird way to live and operate right now. Another thing that's weird that I noticed is grief has escaped me, and what I mean by that is sadly, I did have a friend who passed from COVID-19. And recently, one of my colleagues, actually, Dr. Jennifer Morris and I were chatting about this, and she just said, I, she just said, "How are you doing?" She was checking on me, "How are you doing?" And I really spent some time thinking about that question, because I didn't, because of the social distancing, I didn't get to go visit him in the hospital. I haven't been able to go see his wife, who is also positive with COVID-19. There wasn't a funeral. Like it's almost like he's not gone in my mind. And so, and spending some time thinking about that, it's made me a little nervous. And that when we're able to get out again and we are able to be around each other, what level of grief that we're all going to face as it hits us what has happened, and so that's just something interesting that I noticed. I appreciate all the comments you guys are leaving, so I'm not going to have time to read through all of them, so I hope you guys are paying attention to see what people are writing. Anxiety about returning to my office, heightened sense of alert. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I like that one about cooking. It says, "I'm not a good cook," but you probably are. You're just being modest. I'm not. Oh, it went down. There we go. "I'm not cooking. Pretty nervous. I'm going to burn myself or cut myself with a knife and have to choose between dealing with it." Yesterday my kids wanted to whittle some sticks, and I'm thinking, the last thing I want to do is cut themselves and us end up in the ER, and so yeah, these are the types of things that we're all noticing. Another weird thing that I've noticed is that the urge to constantly keep moving. Most people that I know that are in private practice, their caseloads are down a little bit. So, we're not as busy as we normally are, but I'm busier than I've ever been. It feels like constantly doing things, constantly trying, there's just something else to do. Like I said, I think it's just that natural instinct or that natural survival instinct that we have to keep moving. And if you kind of think about it from like the military standpoint, I know that in war, you're not supposed to be still. You need to stay on the move as a means of survival. And I definitely feel that urge too. It's hard to make myself be still. The other thing I've noticed too that's odd is I'm really seeing how touch dependent we are as a culture. Other than the people in your home, when's the last time that you touched somebody? And I really feel for the people, for the singles or the people living alone out there that are social distancing alone. It's got to just be tough on that front, because at least the people that are with somebody or quarantined together, we're still touching in that front, because as a people, we are even people that don't like to be touched still are touching, the handshakes, fist bumps, bump, punching each other in the arm or something like that. And so it's I don't think we realize just how touch dependent we are. And guys too, when you see me kind of looking over, I'm trying to read some of the comments as we go, just in case there's something that you're really needing me to address. But if there's something that I don't address from the comments, that please bring it up in the Q&A portion of this video, so I don't neglect any really good questions or things that you really want to have answered today. So those are just a few things that I noticed that has made this just such an odd, weird experience, something I've never experienced before, and just brought some things to light. Another thing about COVID-19 is that it's really brought some unique challenges to the human condition. And so if there's anything that we've learned about the human condition in times of major crises, it's that we have this natural desire and urge to help our fellow person. So think back on 9/11. It's kind of one thing that most of us think of when it comes to a tragic event in American history, and how people were just itching to just help. They just wanted to help, and we're dealing with a situation where we can't even help in the ways that we normally help, because we like to help in proximity to each other, and so this virus has isolated us and kept us from, or at least challenging us to be very creative or come up with new ways that we can do this thing that lets us know that we're human, which is help our fellow person. So it's really challenging our humanity in a lot of ways. So it's just, those are some things that I was just thinking about in terms of how different and unique of a situation we're in, and it's made, and where we're all trying to navigate this. I think anybody that that hasn't seen their a spike in their anxiety or a lull in their mood is likely a really good compartmentalizer, or they're just completely aloof and checked out. A worldwide pandemic is almost too much for our brain to process on what's happening. So when we first started social distancing, we were responding to a global health crisis, right? So it's a health crisis. And then very quickly into that, we tacked on an economic crisis. So we're having to deal with that. And now, if not, we are going to see, or we're starting to see, that we're about to deal with a mental health crisis. and really a relational health crisis as well. And we're already starting to see that. In fact, there was, at this point, I was really wanting to share a video that we couldn't figure out how to get the sound to work. Last night, I interviewed a friend of mine, her name is Amanda Brandon, and she's a licensed professional counselor in Edmond. And I've known her for a few years. And she is currently in New York City working on the front lines as a mental health professional. And in the video, which I will post to YouTube in the very near future, you know, I was just wanting to show you guys a clip of it. You know, she was talking about, you know, a lot of the unique challenges and how things are different. And then she mentioned that the night before last, you know, one of the ER doctors committed suicide. It's a story that ran in the New York Times, I believe. And so she's there to tend to the medical, the healthcare workers, in this highly stressful environment that they're in. And so yeah, we're going to see some, as things simmer down, hopefully that'll be sooner than later. You know, we're going to start seeing the effects of that on people that are in the trenches, you know, or people that are stuck in quarantine, that, you know, all we have as you're checking on people, all we have are people's words. And in American culture, we're really good at saying, I'm fine, you know, not real good at saying, I'm not fine, I'm not okay. And so it makes it really tough. So there was an article that was posted in the Lancet, and sadly, I feel bad about this. I could not pronounce the names of the authors, but I'll try to post the link in the chat box. So just let me read this quote to you guys, and then I do have a PowerPoint I'm going to shift over to in just a minute. In any biological disaster, themes of fear, uncertainty, and stigmatization are common and may act as barriers to appropriate medical and mental health interventions. Based on experience from past serious novel pneumonia outbreaks globally and the psychological impact of virus epidemics, the development and implementation of mental health assessment, support, treatment, and services are crucial in pressing goals for the health response to the 2019 COVID outbreak. And I don't think this is anything that, I'm sure that this is not news to you guys. So I'm probably preaching to the choir on that. And so I wanted to move over to I'm going to share my screen real quickly and pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. All right, so just kind of get through this. Okay, so as I mentioned, the video, the interview that I did with Amanda Brandon will also be posted to our YouTube channel, which this is what you're seeing. And interestingly enough, you actually see those videos down below. Those videos are the latest videos that I've had a series of practitioners that are doing, partaking in this webinar series that we're doing called the COVID-19 webinar series, talking about several different topics. And then those are Zoom videos, and then I'll take the meaty parts of those discussions and put them on YouTube. And so those 5 are actually the only 5 that we have up right now. But we're continuing to do those webinars, so you're welcome to watch those as well. But all right, so what I want to talk with you guys about is just I wanted to keep this as simple as possible for everybody, because I love that, you know, we love taking notes and we love learning, but also wanted to try to put something together that you'd remember and that you could apply that to your life on a daily basis. And so, or start applying. And remember, as you start to do some of these things in your life, start to add some of these things I want to talk about, remember, it's one iron in the fire at a time. So a lot of times when we start helping people with planning and adding structure to their life, it starts to feel overwhelming because it seems like there's just so much to do. But if you think of it as just one iron in the fire at a time, and then you can move to the next one, it can be much less overwhelming. So you pick a place to start, you start there. And then after you feel like you got some momentum there, then you move to the next thing. So I'm going to go over like kind of 3 things with you. And the first one is staying calm, and which sounds easy, or it might sound condescending too, depending on how you're reading that. But no one likes to be told to calm down, but it's really working at managing our anxiety, because when we're in that heightened state of anxiety, it's harder to see what we need to do, because we basically go into tunnel vision. So that's your fight or flight response. This is your brain really working hard to protect you, and that's why you kind of go into tunnel vision. Like if in an effort to survive a dangerous situation, I need to see what's out in front of me, and have a really good, clear view of that. And so it's being able to calm your anxiety down to where you can think clear about what you're doing. And I'm going to have to real quickly, guys, figure out how to take my pictures. Oh, there we go. My video was blocking my slides, so I didn't see what I wrote. But the first thing I have in being calm is to be proactive. And this is more like being proactive with, for example, like creating new routines. Creating new routines in your life right now is really important, because otherwise things just stay chaotic. So this is adding a structure to your life. And when you have a structure and you have a plan for how things are going to operate, you can your system starts to calm down, because our brains like patterns, and right now our patterns have been disrupted drastically. I mean, it's been devastating for a lot of people. Our brains don't like it at all. It's like, this all of a sudden our whole way of life was interrupted, and our brains are going, wait, I liked how we did things. Why are we stopping doing things this way? And it pushes back against us, and that creates that chaos, And so I want you to start creating new patterns and get your brain in a new way of doing things, so that will help you feel safe and help you keep your anxiety down. So part of those routines, you need to include sleep as part of that. So what time are you waking up? What time are you going to bed? Making sure you're getting sleep right now, which again, as I mentioned earlier, I feel this constant urge to keep moving. So, one of the things whenever we're adding irons into the fire, I talk to people all the time that one of the first things people give up is sleep, because no matter how many irons you have in the fire, we all have 24 hours in the day. So, so when people say, I'm too busy for this or that, what they're really saying is I have too many irons in the fire, because we're all busy. We're all busy. We all have we're all taking up all 24 hours of our day doing something. You might be busy sleeping, right? And but when you go into that survival mode, sleep often takes a hit, and I want you to take sleep very seriously through this. Daily exercise routine, diet and exercise are kind of the things that we commonly think about. But also adding in quality time with your loved ones, working that into your plan, and also the work and school schedule. And so creating this new routine is usually really beneficial for us when we're going through something like this. It helps us. We at least work basically controlling what we can control, which is our environment and the things that we're involved in. Now, you do need to be flexible with that, which is the bottom one on there that you see. But you don't want it. This isn't a time for rigidity. So you need to allow for some flexibility for things to change, instead of putting down solid times like at 8 o'clock I'm waking up, or if you don't wake up in single digits, then at 10 o'clock I'm waking up. You might put from 10 to I'll wake up somewhere between 10 and 10:30, to allow that flexibility, and so that you don't get because then you'll just stress yourself out on trying to meet the deadlines, basically. So the other thing I want to mention too is part of your plan is self-care. You really need to work self-care in there. Now, I mean, self-care is important anyways, but with going through something like this, it's even more important, particularly because one of the things that is so sinister about this and about this virus is that it attacks our immune system, and then our means to deal with it has been like the best prescribed medicine right now is social distancing. So we have the way we're dealing with this, or the way to beat the virus, is to social distance, and social distancing can quickly become social isolation. Our anxiety goes up, our immune system goes down, and so if we're not managing our anxiety and our emotions and our bodies through all of this, then you're making yourself more susceptible to having problems with it if you were to contract it. So it's really important to not just social distance and just like, well, I'm just going to wait this thing out and then I'll pick back up on my old routines. Start new routines, get your body calm, and keep your immune system healthy. So the other thing within that I have written in there is being still. Sorry. One more thing with the proactive is utilize touch where you have it. So something that you may or may not know is that when we have this hormone in our bodies that's released with touch called oxytocin. It's an attachment hormone, and it's often been referred to as the love hormone or the hug hormone. So whenever you get a really good hug, you're getting a good dose of oxytocin. When you have an orgasm in sex, you're getting a lot of oxytocin. It's an attachment, like I said, attachment hormone. But you also get little spritz of oxytocin by loving on your dog or your pet, and if you're alone and if you're social distancing by yourself and you're able to get your hands on an animal, a pet, then utilize that time with that pet, because that oxytocin helps calm your system down, and so taking time to touch, and then of course if you're isolated together, or I'm sorry, social distance, I don't like to use the word isolation, social distancing together, then making sure that you are spending time engaging in touch, and so that you can get that oxytocin release and help calm your system down. So like I said, we are very touch dependent people, species. The next thing is to be still. As I mentioned earlier, I have found this harder and harder to do during this, but it's really important. And so what I want to encourage everybody to do with this is really listen to your body. Take some time to pay attention to what's happening in your system. How's your stomach behaving? How are your muscles behaving? And what is your body trying to tell you? I have had more headaches through this than I've ever had before in my life, and what is my body trying to tell me? I'm overdoing it. I need, and mine was trying to tell me I need to sleep because I have sacrificed sleep. So I've been trying to be more intentional lately with getting a good night's rest, because I'm tired of having headaches. And so pay attention to those cues and spend some time, just close your eyes and get into, if you can, get into kind of a meditative state, and maybe just spend some time in dialogue with your body, trying to ask it what it's trying to tell you. And I know some people might think that's odd, but we're always in dialogue with ourselves. You know, you're driving down the road and you're talking to yourself, and if you're not talking out loud, you're talking inside your mind, because there are a lot of things happening in our brains. We all have voices that are communicating to us about this or that, and it's okay to. It doesn't mean that you have a dissociative identity disorder or schizophrenia or something if you actually try to listen to what they're trying to tell you. You know, so pay attention to those cues, and then, like I said, the last one is be flexible. You know, so I already mentioned that. And so in the comment section, you go ahead and write what your favorite self-care activity has been, just to give other people ideas. And just so you guys know, I'm in the screen I have up, I can't see the comments right now, but in that section, tell people what you've been doing, just because that way we can start sharing ideas. And so just in case you're getting bored with something and you're wanting to try something new, put those down there. The next thing is getting connected. So this is more on the relational aspect of taking care of yourself. So we as a human species, we are relational creatures, and that's the one reason why the social distancing has been so hard. And I've heard people say, like, I'm introverted, you know, and so this is great for me. It's not. I mean, even introverts are. They might handle it a little bit better, especially in the beginning. But being introverted does not mean I don't like being around people. You know, I don't like having relationships and engaging in relationships. You know, it just means they don't draw a lot of their energy from a constant desire for engagement, but they value relationships, and they're having to stay away from people too, and it's hard on introverts in different ways. So you know, staying connected has been a real challenge, because we're limited, and because the ways that we typically like to by doing it through proximity and physical touch have not been or have been challenged for us. And so we have to come up with new ways. And so the first thing in being connected that I want to say is just being present. So kind of like, you know, we hear people say, like, finding your center, you know, try to be where you are, you know, and I think it's good to plan. I think it's good to remember our history, and, you know, I think it's good to plan for the future. But it's also good to just be right where you are. And there's a really good exercise that I learned from Eckhart Tolle. If you ever heard of him, he wrote a book called The Power of Now. He's written a few different books. And it's just this really simple exercise that I use this often, believe it or not. Actually practice what I preach sometimes. But all you do is that in any given moment, you just get into a spot where you can be still, close your eyes, and breathe, and then just ask yourself, in this moment, this very moment that we're in right now, is everything okay? And I firmly believe that you could be, you know, on your deathbed 15 minutes away from passing, and you'd be able to answer that question as yes. Because when you do that exercise, it actually, you're turning your mind off just for a minute, you know, and realizing that, you know, I'm still alive, I'm still breathing air, you know, at this moment in time, I still have a roof over my head and food in my fridge, you know, or and, you know, there's I think we need to work harder at being present and remembering that that the human species is one of resiliency. You know, it's often our anxiety comes from the fear of something that may not ever happen. You know, um, and that's harder to deal with than actually being in it if it does happen. You know, because when we're in it, we don't have to worry about it, right? So that part of the anxiety can just go. You know, and so, but if there's one thing that we've proven as a species is how resilient we are, and that's something that Sherry and I were talking right before this is that how many of you think about how much you've learned over a course of just a few weeks? You know, how to work remotely from home, how to use Zoom, how to do social distancing calls and interactions, and think about just in a matter of a few weeks how much you've learned and adjusted your life, and we're all doing it. We're doing it, you know. So just take some time every day to just ask yourself, especially when you feel your anxiety spiking, in this moment, this very moment, is everything okay? And I think if you can't answer that as yes, then you're still thinking into the future or into the past. And so that's a way to stay present. Um, and then staying in touch. So there's a quote that's often said. I think it's a tribute. I can't remember. I think I first heard it from a guy named I can't remember his first name, but his last name's von Bertalanffy. I think maybe it's Dietrich von Bertalanffy. If anybody knows that name, let me know. But the quote is, "The whole is greater than the sum of its parts." You know, and so this idea that, you know, as a species, and you know, we're bigger, badder, more powerful together. You know, in fact, I think there's some anthropological theory on evolution about, you know, why did the human species rise to power over other species? And I think some of the theory is that just our ability to form and operate in groups and communicate in groups, you know, in communities, is why the human species, from an evolutionary perspective, you know, why human species evolved into the dominant species. So, so yeah, we are people of groups, and we survive in groups, and so we got to figure out how to keep our groups going. You know, so utilizing the things that you have, that you're able to do, Zoom, having that face-to-face interactive contact with people is really important right now. And the other thing about the human species, actually all mammals, I can't remember the actual category. I need to look this up. But I can't remember what the category is called, but there are like nine certain things that all mammals do, basically from birth to death. One of those things is play. There's something about our culture that I think it might. I don't think it's just American culture, but I do think it's more cultural than anything else. That we kind of start to grow out of play, you know, and we just want to work all the time, you know, just got to get ahead, you know, and things like that. And but play is so important. And one thing, it's healing, because in order to play, you have to utilize your imagination, enter into that part of your brain. And I believe that that's largely where healing occurs, is in our imagination, or at least in that imaginative, creative part of our brain. And so start figuring out how to play. And sharing resources with each other. So again, you know, that's kind of the whole why I'm asking people to post in the comments section, is to start letting people know what you're doing, and how you're doing things differently through this pandemic that has been helpful for you. And I think that's the next question I have on here is, in the comment section, is how are you being intentional with relationships? You know, if you're social distancing alone right now, how are you doing it? You know, how are you utilizing play while you're social distancing um, in your own home? You know, so being in the key words here is being intentional. Those are key words. Sorry, key words are being intentional. So if you get kind of complacent with it, or if you're not being intentional, you're just going to find yourself wanting to escape, you know, and so you just kind of let your survival instincts just take over, and then that's when you drink too much, or you're eating too much, or I think as a sex addiction therapist, I'm aware of what the porn industry is doing right now, and I know that Pornhub has offered free premium services for people to, as in the way they promote it is to help flatten the curve, you know, by staying home, keeping you at home, you know, and so yeah, you could let your survival instincts take over, and then you're just watching porn all the time, you know, and you're not really being intentional with your life, you know, and then when all this is over, you know, I do think mental health professionals are going to see an influx, a major. I think we're going to get overwhelmed next with having to work with people, because you know, and to be honest with you, I never fault people for surviving, you know. So, but if we can be intentional with our survival strategies and not just let them happen to us, that would be more ideal. So. Okay, so the next one, the last one I want to cover is just being creative. Like I said, I really do believe in the power of being creative. I believe in the power of the brain to heal itself. There's a concept called Wei Qi. It's something I've heard for years. I've seen it in textbooks. I do think that there might be some controversy from linguists on what it actually means, but historically, the way this has been used is it's a Chinese word for crisis. It means Wei Qi. Wei Qi means crisis. And, the way it's kind of been framed in kind of, popular culture is that Wei means danger and Qi means opportunity. So, kind of viewing a crisis as a dangerous opportunity, and so, there's no one would wish this pandemic on anybody, and we hope we never have to go through it again. But one thing I've seen a lot, or hearing a lot from people, is people noticing things, positive things that they haven't noticed before. And it's almost hard to mention because we don't want to downplay the tragedy of what's happened in our culture, So, we're trying to be respectful of that. And but people or their favorite time of the day is when they go on walks, or people are noticing how, and you're seeing videos posted about how the earth is starting to recover from the pollution, and someone had mentioned the other day, something I never thought about, is that in our culture, you couldn't really plan from, you could plan something tomorrow, but the chances of that changing is highly likely because everything changes so fast. But you can basically plan out your week now, and that probably would happen just how you planned it. Things have just slowed down, and no, this is not how we would have gone about it. And we wouldn't wish this pain upon our worst enemy, but it's trying to find those opportunities to, maybe it's time to write that book, maybe it's time to start that blog, or to start learning things that you have told yourself that you were going to learn and you just haven't ever found the time. Now's the time, to start doing some of these things. Being creative in your social distancing. So, one of the questions I have for you is, what are some of the creative things that you've done or you've seen? I know, like, we did a social distance cake decorating the other day with some of our close friends and their kids, where we, pulled everybody up on Zoom and we all decorated cakes together. I've been a part of 2 birthday parades already. And on my birthday, which I turned 40 right when the pandemic happened, so we had to cancel a bunch of plans. some of my closest friends came by the house and from a distance, you know, just was goofy out in our front yard singing happy birthday and dancing around. So it was actually one of the most meaningful birthdays I think I've had. I think because of what I can see that how the loss this has created in our lives. And then of course self-care, you know, being creative with your self-care. And so I wanted to leave some time. I know we're running short on time. I want to leave some time for some questions, but real quickly, what you're seeing now, this screen these are the different services that I mentioned to you that we have at Family Solutions, and posted a link to our website. But and the pandemic planning is something that is coming, but we're still working on getting that fully developed. It's kind of the idea behind it is to help people put some of these plans together that, like I was mentioning to you guys. But one thing I want you guys to be aware of that I really want to accent today are these support groups. You know, these are free and they're online and they're therapist led, and it's not therapy, but they are therapist led. And I think the only one that's not available for registration right now, and it's just because we haven't got the Zoom link up yet, is for the conflicted couples. But all the other ones are open for registration, and the therapists have given their time up at that time of the day to be available to facilitate these groups. So we want you to be really want you to be aware of that. And if you guys see that show up on Facebook, please share it. And then I'll just end with this quote: "The world breaks everyone, and afterwards many are strong at the broken places." So I'm gonna go ahead and stop there and reserve the rest of the time to answer any questions that you guys have.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to ask Josh any questions. It looks like there might be some in the chat box, Josh. So if you want to take a look there towards the bottom.
Okay. So in terms of getting back to hosting in-person events, how can we help calm those who come in our workspace? Obviously, we want them to feel safe and not anxious. What types of things should we communicate before they come and when they arrive? You know, we're talking about this too, of, you know, when are we going to start having people back? The first thing is, I think that you need to have very clear policies around how you're going to keep your people safe and the people that come in your space safe. And so one thing we've talked about, like if we can't have the cleaning supplies to keep our space clean regularly, then we can't have people back in here, you know. I mean, so right now cleaning supplies are scarce, right? And so so that's kind of what we're talking about is and then having that very clear to people on what the expectations are, and that we are going to be rigid with that to some degree, just to communicate that this is serious and people's health is serious. And so we will be developing certain policies to reintroduce people to our space, and we're also going to do it, and we're going to work hard to really follow the CDC guidelines for the phases in trying to do it gradually and not just say, all right, doors are open, come on in, let's have a big party, you know. Let's see. Trying to find other questions on here. So you guys feel free to jump in with a question if you have one while I'm reading through some of these comments. Do you have additional resources or tips for being present? That's always a struggle. There's on our YouTube channel, Holly Shockley did a great video on mindfulness, and mindfulness wasn't something that was heavily on my radar until this pandemic, and watching her video almost brought me to tears, just hearing her talk about how to do this. And I have also utilized breathing techniques more than I ever have in my life to help keep my system calm. And so the apps like Calm and Headspace are really good apps to help with that. I used to use Headspace when I got on planes because I'm a nervous flyer. But now it's just good to utilize regularly to help keep. I'll go lay down on the couch and intentionally just go and just kind of try to get into that meditative state. And then of course things like yoga and exercise are good at helping you with that as well. So, but if I had to recommend apps, I'd recommend Calm and Headspace.
Perfect. I think we have time for one more question or comment, Josh.
Okay, someone just wrote, found out that someone else struggles with the same thing. Any tips on how to fix it? Stress causes me to struggle to get a deep breath. I will yawn and not feel the release that a yawn usually provides. If you're having my comment on things like that is you might need to work with somebody that can help you with those techniques, because again, we are relational creatures. So, you know, if you have the means to reach out to someone that can help you with how to do this, how to do it appropriately, it could just be something that you're not thinking about that is interfering with your ability to do this and help you get into the mindset that you need to be. So reach out to the resources. I am going to post the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health Substance Abuse Services. They have some good resources. So I just posted that right now. But you know, feel free to check them out as well, and shoot me an email if you have any more questions or things that you want me to address. So sorry I couldn't get to all the questions, but I appreciate all your participation.
Josh, thank you so much for your time, for taking an hour plus out of your day to come and talk with us. We really appreciate all of the tips, and we hope to be able to put them to use soon.